Hello, I'm the Wolves Den, and welcome to another episode of Menu Combat, the podcast for JRPG fans who like to pause and customize their party. I'm your host, the Wolves Den, and there are three parts to every show: the what am I grinding on, what am I reflecting on, and what is the Bard's Tale of the Week. And with that in mind, let me tell you what I've been grinding on. And yes, that means it is time for the Persona 4 Golden Update of the week. And all I have to tell y'all, water is wet, Persona 4 Golden is good. What else? What can I say? What can I say? When I say that Persona 4 Golden is good, it's that I'm finally past the core intro and I'm starting to get the essence of the experience. And I think there's so many places where I want to go, but I think the thing that stands out, the thing that comes out to me, this game is funny in a way that I don't think of Persona 5 as funny. I'm thinking about Marie's first moment with Yosuke, and it's like, anybody who buys me meat must be a good guy. There are these lines that they're being delivered, and they're just silly. They're funny. They're making me laugh. They're making me put a smile on my face. It's almost very 16-bit Final Fantasy, where there sometimes would sneak in something really humorous. And when I think of my time with Persona 5, I can't think of anything funny. I think of things that are cool. I think of things that are neat, things that are thoughtful, but not funny. And I think this game goes out of its way, at least in the regular folks dialogue, to be consistently funny. I'm thinking about later on, you meet a guy in the Upper Inaba shopping district, and he's motorcycle lover, and what does he say? He says, well, if I ever get one, right now it's more of a conceptual title. Like, this is just a humorous kind of bantery game, and I think they know that. I think every day is great at your Junes. Like, they're building that up, and it's a silly line, and it's this memorable tagline, but it's also like there's a little satire in it. There's a little bit like, there's no way we believe that Junes is good, right? Like, there's no one who's playing this for the first time is like, I really think Junes is a really not really going to be a core part of why this is going on. No, like, they're building this up, and it's fun. Like, I think that's what's been standing out. Even so, one of the things that stands out is that I ended up joining a sports club. I joined a basketball sports club, and you meet Cool. And the fact that they created a arcana around two characters is interesting, right? They call it the fellow athletes arcana, which I'm assuming means that if I would have flipped over to the football, I would have ended up connecting with the other gentleman. And that's so interesting, to connect two people to this, and then maybe you miss out on core parts of the experience or different social links as a result. But you meet with him and Ku on the ground, and it's like, I haven't breathed air this bad in a long time. It's this joking aspect of about being in a small town versus being in the city. Like, you have one of the teachers talk about the don't mess with the city folks. And obviously, I'm sure that this game is about country and about being in the country in Japan. And I think they lean into a humor part about it. Obviously, playing more of Persona 4 means that I finally finished the Yukiko's dungeon. And I'm of a couple of thoughts when I think about completing this dungeon, what I like from the dungeon experience, what I don't like. I wish they told you how many floors it was. I like that Teddy tries to tell you on each floor, like, can you hear her? What to expect? I think I caught myself on the 5th floor where he's like, oh, she's on this floor. Oh, I'm like, I could expend SP. I can be ready for this battle, and only to find out that it's a mini boss and not the actual boss. I think, especially for a game that's asking me to preserve SP, preserve HP, be more thoughtful in how I use my actions, not giving me an idea of how long I have to go, is disappointing. But I also don't mind the procedural dungeons. Honestly, coming from Persona 5, the elements that are... This is really just like the mementos, right? And obviously, I would love for you to eventually gain skills to explore these procedural dungeons the way you did Mementos, where something maps out something. But I get the impression from the social links that they don't build in that direction. And in fact, all the Persona links are about building your, obviously, assortment of monsters that you recruit through tarot cards. And I would hope maybe a better answer is, if you're going to lean into the shuffle time, which I really enjoy, that social links could add elements to you to alter your shuffle time. And maybe, again, this is early times, but talking about ways that this can improve, be more interesting, because shuffle time is such a good idea. Being able to choose between HP and SP, halving your XP, changing different cards. Like, I think I like shuffle time more of a negotiations by far, right? I have the only other experience in negotiation outside of Persona 5 I have is with SMT3, and negotiations fine, right? Like, you're trying to get the essence of what the monster is like, what do they represent, what do you anticipate for them to act like. But if I'm honest, shuffle time is just so much quicker, and because you are altering your dungeon experience, which I think I just like a lot, it brings more to the table. I'm excited to see how they evolve it. Like, I think one of the things that's challenging about shuffle time, though, is not always having chess keys and needing to create chess keys when you need it. Same with skill cards. In fact, the most interesting thing is that I got a skill card for a real life skill, which is so different, right? Like, if I do this skill card, I will now have I forgot what level, sharp student, which I love. I like the idea that dungeon crawling can do things for your social life in a way that, unless I'm not thinking in 5, that never really was the case, right? Like, your social life was access to other social life things or access to more social links, but it wasn't necessarily something that was connected to the dungeon crawling that you were doing, unless it affected your negotiations. The fact that here I can get skill cards that can make me do better things outside of the space is such a neat concept, and a deeply, 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 deeply respected. All this to say, shuffle time is incredible. Even if it's randomized, even if you can't always get what you want, I think it also is nice because it rewards thoughtful play. Like, if I'm just scraping by in a battle, I'm not going to get shuffle time. But if I exploit something, if I play better, if I time things right, I will get rewarded by a shuffle time. Now, what I didn't really notice is whether or not, once you go on a higher floor, can you go back on other floors and get shuffle time still? I noticed when I got to the 8th floor of Yukiko's dungeon, I no longer got shuffle times, even if I played well. And I wonder if that's just one of those things to gauge you out of certain experiences, so you don't over-exploit or over-grind. I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't playing as good as I thought, but it's one of those very neat, thoughtful things. And honestly, I'm back and forth on how I feel about the procedural dungeons. If you guys remember in P5, I wasn't as excited about the created dungeons. Honestly, the best dungeon is Okamura's castle. The space place. That's the best one, right? I think I liked all of them, but none of them stand out in my all-time JRPG dungeons. But when I think about the proceduralness, I'm not excited. But on the other hand, there's moments where, I don't know if you guys remember on floor 5, when you go into certain places, Yukiko kind of shifts you around. And because it's so much of a maze, I didn't realize what was going on. I'm like, wait, I'm going in the direction. Why is it stopping me? When I realize with the map, I'm like, oh, I have to go this direction and that direction to kind of fill in the map, empty the floor, then get access to the actual mini boss. And that required me to engage with the map in a different way. That kind of messing with the player, getting at them, getting under their skin, irritation. You can tell this is more connected to their first-person dungeon design or just that kind of attrition style. And it's really cool, really thoughtful. When I think about this game, there's a lot of stuff that I'm growing to appreciate. All of this leads to what is a damn good boss battle. Honestly, the symbolism of this Yukiko boss battle is genuinely some of the best stuff I've seen Persona do. It is literally, she is a red caged bird who summons a knight, which, if that's the most blunt description of what her issues are with her shadow, it's genius, right? She feels like a caged bird. She feels like she's trapped. And she's this delicate flower, right? Like, that's how everyone treats her. And so she's literally a caged bird who is struggling with her own agency. And because she has to inherit the inn, be in charge of that, and she has to be this perfect representation. And what she's hoping is to be free through summoning a knight, summoning a judgment caller, summoning a suitor. And these are thoughts that we don't hear from her. Again, this is her shadow speaking, and it speaks so elegantly well. And then when you start off facing against her, then she pulls her knight, hoping that this turns the tide in her battle, just like she thinks it will turn the tide in her life. You get rid of a knight, and then she tries to summon again, and she won't get it again, and she's left to deal with it on her own. And she can't deal with it on her own as her shadow. But then obviously you beat her, she's on the other side, having to accept that if she wants to change this, she has to do it on her own. And later on, right, like the next day when you engage with her, she's like, I was trying to do this all by myself. Changing the idea of what she needs is a suitor instead of what she needs is a community. Brilliant. Like, a story, like, I don't know what else to say besides, if you've never felt trapped by decisions, never felt trapped by the makings of who you are, you don't really get the idea of wanting someone to help you escape. And in her case, it's wanting to escape via the idea of a man can pull her out of her scenario. But obviously, like, we have all different reasons, things that we escape. Sometimes I used to do really into like really negative ideation around the idea of like, oh, I don't have to deal with the decisions. I don't have to deal with these things that have made me. That refusal to sit with that, and obviously me never wanted to communicate it in any way. I get what Yukiko's saying, and I think the boss design is great. I think compared to Shadow Chie's design, where, yes, Shadow Chie is this binding, controlling of other schoolgirls. Like, I get it, but I feel so far with Chie's growth, there's more to do and more to explore. Obviously, because Chie didn't have a palace or dungeon designed around her feelings and what she's navigating. I think Yukiko gets the benefit of us building this up, us seeing her around the universe, us seeing her in the regalia, like being treated in these different ways. This, I think, speaks to what I think Persona will always be good at, which is exploring emotions. And I think about something else that I think people critique about Persona a lot, which I get, which is this is not an adult experience. These not explaining adult emotions, or mainly it's because around issues of sexualization, which I don't blame people for that issue, and I'm not even trying to poo-poo that. Like, I didn't like how they treated Anne, all of that. But I also think part of the reason why they fight for high school more than college, even though colleges are coming of age, and people talk about cultural differences, the role of college in Japan versus the college in America is very different. But more what I'm getting at is that the first times you had to challenge and sit with these thoughts is some of the most difficult challenges. And I think the idea is that when you're an adult, yes, you have to sit with them, but you've battled it once before, right? You've battled these questions. Now, that could be wrong. That could be me misinterpreting, me thinking differently. But I think about the challenges I had to sit with college required a lot of growth. But the emotional desperation of high school of some of these feelings is very different. And I think sitting with the masks of childhood and adulthood, I guess those are the things that where I'm like, I can't fault them for leaning into high school, leaning into these elements, because time is different. The way that you choose things are different. I think that's the other piece, right? I think Persona have a deep goal to tell people how to grow, and they think their message is most appropriate for that age group. Obviously, we played as adults, we get nostalgic, we played as adults and still enjoy the story, right? Like I'm enjoying Persona 4's story, but I think for example, when they talk about the part-time job can build diligence, that's not a conversation to me as an adult per se. It's a conversation to a child or a teen about how can you build that social skill in life, right? And I think that is what this game is trying to always convey. And funny enough, I'm gonna make the comparison because I could now see one of my favorite indie games is Friends of Ringo Ishikawa, fantastic, and I think that game is trying to talk about choices, the sense of lack of choice, what can you make of your life, and it pulls a lot from Persona. I think it's a lot closer to 4 than anything else. Obviously, it's not just that; it's a brawler, it's a whole bunch of things, but there is this moment of like, if you do these things, you can have different connections with people. And I think that's it's an element in high school that is important to like open up your eyes. I think that's why when you go on YouTube and you search up Persona, people like, Persona changed my life. And people will fairly critique some of the storytelling, some of the core issues. But I think at the spirit of Persona, the spirit of what it's getting at is about you can change, right? Like, it's not lost to me that at least in the 2 games I've played, there are people moving from other towns to other places, and this is a moment to change how you're perceived. And the way you change your perceived is how you interact and build these social skills. Like, that's a message that we want to share, right? Like, fundamentally, there's a lot of key issues in Persona, but I think, and maybe I'm too aspirational about it, maybe I'm too optimistic about the message, but that's a good thing to leave with a teen, right? Like, you can change your life through building these characteristics. I'm going to go way off tangent. I don't know if you guys saw James Pargin. He has these 6 truths of life, and it's a more cynical take on like needing to be valuable. But I every time I read the article, I'm like, I get the gist here, but I just don't like the tone. I don't like this. Remember, he's like, oh, we need to stop being children. This is early 2012. You know what the tone is. It's written on Cracked. It's still really good. And for certain men, this is stuff that appeals to their styles of writing. But I think what I like in Persona, it's more optimistic. And I think they accurately frame it as like, if you had a little bit more of this, you could pursue things in a different way. Like, I'm thinking about how in Chie they create a courageous check around her getting her number, right? She's now a part of the investigation team. You can now get her number. Can you ask for it out loud? And then it's like, no, you don't have enough courage yet. Again, building up the idea of the mechanic of needing better social characteristics in order to engage in ways that are more ambitious. And so you have to ask it through the investigation team and go backwards, right? Things like that I think are really much more framing this need to grow in better ways. And obviously, we always need to grow. I think, honestly, these are things to remember as we get older. But I say that to say, I think we spend so much time talking about wanting to change the location. And I don't think it's wrong, right? I think teens obviously watch adult media to learn these lessons, right? Or just to engage with it because they think it's cool. But I say this to say that I get jiggy with the concept of centering it in this place. I get jiggy in that because I think the people who need that message, I'm looking around, where else are they going to get that message about ways you can be better to have that? And mind you, yes, it can lean in over centralizing. I was like, you need to be cool. No, I think about what Chie says, and I was like, oh, you're really like people really get drawn to you, and that can get very players are center of the universe, and that stuff gets a little bit iffy. But the general gist, the general energy, I'll always be behind, because I think the idea that more knowledge will help you navigate situations better, the more understanding, more empathy allows you to build better connections. Even stuff like more courage will get you to go to different places. Like, those are generally the spirits of being a person that I think in other games, even some more Western RPGs, like, those are skill checks, right? I started I think it's Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteousness, and being able to have enough of this allows enough of like will allows you to lift the boulder to rescue Anazaria or something like that. And those are skill checks to give you different access to things, but it's not about living life differently. It's about the choices that you make, right? Like, and I think maybe that's the spirit I'm getting. It's like, I think this is a model of how to think about your life because it's much more of a modern game building on last episode versus what ends up being the right gray moral area. And maybe that's also the limits of the system, right? You don't get to explore the moral quandaries, right? Like you're exploring the moral quandaries through the stories that they provided you that are linear experiences, but not through your choices directly. And they're good and bad to that. And I just want to say, it says it so beautifully. The strength of heart required to face oneself has been made manifest. Oh my goodness, man. I don't know. I think the theming of truth is just too damn strong. It's too compelling, and I can sense that I will get more resonance with the stories. I do think, though, after Yukiko's story, as much as I've built it up, I still felt a little bit empty. I didn't feel all of what I wanted to feel. But I think in craftsmanship, I'm just like, this is hitting such a high level in ways that I'm thoroughly impressed. And so that's what I've been grinding on. As I said, I just got out of Yukiko's dungeon. Early times, early moments, indeed. This now goes into what have I been reflecting on. This is less of a Persona discussion and more of just a larger JRPG discussion, which is, what does it mean to play within the spirit of the game? I said that a few weeks ago when I had Ziad on the podcast. What does it mean to play with the spirit of the game, and what do I mean by that? I think one of the best examples is using items. So in Persona 4, I use items more liberally. You can't buy the life potions. You can't buy the snuff. Like, there's very few things you can buy to carry into the dungeons, and if they do, they're pricey. It's talking about the medicine, things like that. There's a lack of resources, and you are scraping by because of the difficulty, because of the skills necessary, and you're just like, I gotta use this to get through. Similar to how I actually feel when I played Tales of Vesperia, where my desire to hoard items, my desire to never use items is thwarted because of how the game is expecting me to play. And what that means for me is I had this tension in these games of like, am I using these items right? Am I playing within the spirit of the game? Am I following what they're asking me to do? And I think in Persona, because it is going back to what I've always said, a game of attrition, wearing you out, just scraping by to the next floor, I'm like, yes, these are why these are in the chest. This is why it's minimal resources, why you can't get it outside of the dungeons. You just gotta use it. Tales was very difficult for me, though. I sit down in those battles sometimes when I'm like, am I supposed to be using this many orange gels? Am I supposed to be using this many apple gels? And I never know if I'm following the spirit of Tales, but I use it because I go through and I think it allows me to treat these things as more disposable. Where in other RPGs where I feel like I have to use health rarely, I barely should use a potion in Pokemon, I should barely heal up in Final Fantasy. Like, that is not the spirit of these games. These games are designed to be a little bit easier to navigate, a little bit easier to get through. And it's not until like the hard bosses do I need to use these things, and I can't overuse it because I'd be like I'm cheating the system. Do y'all feel like that? Because that's what I think behind all the conversations we say about items, hoarding and not hoarding them, using and not using them, is about, do we think that when we use them in battle, are we cheating the game or not? Because we don't know what the spirit of the game is. What is the designed experience? And I don't know. I go back and forth about this, and I know that most people don't really care about the spirit of the game, but that actually matters to me. It's why I don't like to over level, right? Like, it's another example of people can over level and brute force a moment, and I hate that. I hate that because I'm like, if I'm doing enough battles in every location, I should be ready for the core battles. The fact that I need to overlevel betrays the experience of the game. And especially if I'm at this roughly the same level as this boss battle that's about to come up, and therefore I should be able to use my skills and tools around me, all the enemies and around me, to solve this problem. I shouldn't just need to overgrind to solve this boss. And so I don't like overgrinding. And I feel like there's only one game where grinding is a solution, and that's Dragon Quest 1, right? Where grinding is connected to your ability to access new places, right? The higher enemies are a signal post of you can't come here yet. And in order to overcome those obstacles, you must grind. And that's a part of the design of the game. So I don't feel bad in Dragon Quest 1, but in other games, I don't feel it. And I think one of the things I try to do is get more accustomed and engaged with the style of game design that I think it's trying to convey and not betray it, right? Like, I'm in a contract with a game designer. There's a whole educational theory that I'll tie about this, which is called adidactical theory, which is the idea that when a teacher, student, and a problem exist, a well-designed problem makes the student totally engaged with the problem and not engaged with the teacher. And what that means is that they're not asking the teacher ways to modify it, change it, but the problem has all the resources that they need to engage with it. This is done by Guy Brousseau. Really cool stuff. Go read into that if that cares. And I think like the ideal game is taking that adidactical design to the full extent, and everything around you should be there for the player to figure out, because they don't have access to talking to the game designer. And I think in me, when I talk about the spirit of the game, that's what I mean, that I am not consulting an outside resource, and I am falling into the design of challenge of the game. That's what matters to me. And so when I feel like I betray that, I'm not happy. Or I feel like I'm losing the essence of the game. I'm losing the essence of fun, right? Because it's not just problem solving. I'm like, am I getting the fun designed here? Am I getting the ideal joy that this is supposed to give me? And that's why I don't mind in this game where I'm like, I'm scraping by. I'm like, that's the feeling I'm supposed to get in the dungeon crawl. That feels right. And yeah, that is something I think about, which leads to my other thing, which is like, how do I feel about cheap strategies? So one of the things I got here was the Archangel Demon in Persona 4, and the Archangel has gotten me, because he has light and this thing can be insta-kill, it's gotten me through some enemies I couldn't get through before. The little king robots that have the hair, but it's like this diamond rock face. I've been able to walk through them now because I have access to Archangel, which can summon, I forgot the name of the light move that's insta-kill. I love that. Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, am I betraying the game? But because it's a case of attrition, I don't feel like that. And that leads to something that I've been trying to understand more, which is don't get attached to any monsters. One of the challenges of Persona 4 or even Persona 5 was an SMT, really, is that my attachment to monsters, treating certain things as favorites, that's not going to get it done. And I have to use the fusion. I have to use it all the time, consistently. When I hit a problem, I should fuse. I think in SMT3, the challenge is that it costs you to fuse. Here, that it doesn't cost you, and if you register it, you can resummon something so you don't always feel like you lost something permanently. And I realized for the boss issues I was facing, I had to go summon a monster that had Bufu ice so I can build off a chair ability of ice. Things like that. Make sure I have no weakness to fire. Like, I am strategizing through what I can create. And that feels like I'm following the rules and energy of the game and not getting caught in my own predispositions about what a monster-oriented game is supposed to be like. So, great stuff, as per usual. And what do you think about the spirit of the game? Last one. I almost forgot. Timing. When a game says I only have so many hours, and obviously it doesn't literally mean that. This is not Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. But when it's like, oh, you are at the last thing, what does that make you feel like? Because there are two responses. You are going to go outside the world where you're about to face a final thing, and it's this impending doom. Are you going to go do every side quest now? Or are you going to go try to beat it? And I feel like the longer I do the side quests, the more I feel like I'm betraying the essence of the time-pressed issue. But sometimes that's all you can do. Like, best example, I think, in Tales of Berseria, the amount of times I went in and out of that dungeon to go get resources to be able to prepare for the final boss is bad. And I feel like I'm losing the essence of the story. I'm betraying. I am not following the spirit of the game. And do you ever feel like that when you reach these final bosses? Do you tend to clean up everything? In fact, Final Fantasy VII was a moment where I didn't want to go clean up anything. I wanted to go follow through the spirit of the game. Do you feel like these examples of items, over-leveling, cheap strategies, and timing, how do those affect how you believe about the spirit of the game and the idea of the game? And how does that compare to the Guy Brousseau stuff I brought up around adidactical theory? With that being said, what is the Bard's Tale of the Week? Now, I don't have a lot of cool stuff to say about Trails because I've never played them. And honestly, sometimes when I look at Trails in the Sky FC1, which I do want to play, I'm open to the remake, but I'm going to be honest with you. The original's graphics never sit with me. But I was listening to the soundtrack, and Falcom Sound Team JDK is... They're Hall of Famers, man. With that being said, I listened to the By Way of Departure, and this combination between beach, generation, vibe music, and Kirby, and going in and out, like the opening is this very melodic, tropical, very wood drum beats, very clomping sounds, and then it spins into this Kirby soundtrack and goes back and forth. Like, it's called the Biowave Departure, so this gotta be a beach town, and I can't wait to see what this looks like. I might even go look up the game for that, because this is such an interesting back and forth between tones that I don't always feel, and I think this just speaks to just how good the Falcom Sound Team is. Regardless of how my non-experience with the games, I've always felt like their soundtracks are really interesting. Sometimes it gets a little bit boring, but man, Falcom Sound Team bodied this. And the change up at 55 seconds is just awesome. So that's one. The second Bard's Tale for the week, Fatal Desire. Woof! What a tune! Look, Persona X, Phantom X, whatever it's called, Persona 5X is now here, and I went to go listen to some of the soundtrack. Fatal Desire, Lyn is back. This guitar riff is incredible. This is a little bit more disco-esque. The singing, the guitar into the breakdown, into Lyn's lyrics, that bass line, and obviously more lyrics about taking the mask off. I mean, it's one of those of like, run back Lyn again, and just do all the great stuff that Lyn did in the Persona soundtrack, and just push it to its full thing. And the flute that comes in, marvelous. I'm sorry, I think if you've not listened to any of the Persona 5X soundtrack, go listen to Fatal Desire. Feel the infectious disco groove. Feel that bass line. This is fantastic, and I can't say anything else. It's the same dynamic Persona music, same acid jazz energy, but yeah, Lyn is just so good. And lyrics are majestic. Her energy is infectious. This is the fun stuff about the Bard's Tale. So, with that being said, those are the things for the week. That's what I've been grinding on. That's what I've been reflecting on. And that's the Bard's Tale. Again, I am the Wolf's Den. And if you want to find me online, you can find me at Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok, all the Wolves Den 25. If you just want to follow Menu Combat, you can find it on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Instagram. Just thank you for listening. Thank you for making time. Please leave a like, comment if you're watching on YouTube. Please leave a review on your podcast of your choice. That stuff goes a long way to keep me in this space. And again, don't forget to pause and customize your party. This was Menu Combat. Peace.